Hey there, listeners. Well, when the heat is on, leaders often rise to the occasion. What happens when the pressure drops off or it starts to plateau? Energy dips, focus drifts, and performance, well, it can start to flatline. And in today's episode, we'll be exploring how to stay motivated and focused when the pressure dies down. Let's discuss.
Welcome to Leadership is Changing. Each week, we and our guests provide information and insights through exploring leading change. This is taking your leadership to another level by finding the balance between executive excellence and personal well-being through stories that inspire real change. It's time to adapt in our fast-moving world when leadership is changing with your host, Denis Gianoutsos.
Welcome to the Ask Dennis episode. This is a freestyle episode where I'm asked a question by our listeners, or I share my thoughts, experiences, and insights from working with many leaders around the globe. Hey there, listeners. Well, welcome to the Leadership is Changing podcast. And as you know, I'm your host, Denis Gianoutsos, and it's great to be with you. And today I'm going to answer a great question that came through LinkedIn recently. How do you help executives sustain that energy when the pressure plateaus or levels off? Well, you may have noticed that last week we didn't actually do an Ask Dennis episode. I wasn't well, and so when the voice isn't great, it's not always easy to do a recording. And so what we did is we did a mashup for last week. So we're back and feeling great, and it's all about today's episode, actually, about the energy and so forth. But let's be honest, many leaders, they thrive in a high-pressure moment. I know I do. I love that high pressure, and I do thrive when it actually happens. You see, leaders tend to step up and they rise to the challenge, and even some of them surprise themselves with what they can actually achieve. But then things start to come back to normal or stabilize. The storm passes, as we talk about it, or the urgency starts to drop off, and suddenly so does the leader's energy. It's not burnout, and it's not overwhelm. It's more about boredom, or it's coasting. In fact, what actually happens here, it's more of a silent killer of momentum. So how do we keep the edge? Or should we keep the edge? It's interesting. We'll talk about that. So how do we stay deliberate, focused, and energized when the external chaos or whatever's going on starts to disappear? Well, there's a few things I want to go through with you in relation to when I'm working with the executives that we may talk about it as well. But you know what? I think the one thing here is your ability to work through things as things start to come off, that pressure comes off, but also when it comes back on again. So the first thing I would say to you is, this is a time when the pressure starts to drop off and the lull or the quiet time. It's time for you to reconnect to your mission. This is time for you to remind yourself and your team why you do what you do. When that pressure, being full on, starts to fade, purpose must be the main focus. See, your energy is often tied to your why, not just your what. So the why is very important. Here's a question for all of you actually right now. When was the last time you reminded yourself of the impact that you're here to make on this earth today? And it may not be just today, and it's in the future, but when's the last time you took time out to remind yourself of the impact that you're here to make? Number two, it's going from that, the way I want to say it is going from firefighting to really thinking about building the future. And there's the two different things, right? Because I actually find that when we have the quiet times, the plateaus, they're actually a gift. I actually find that in my own business, I have some quiet times. And those who know me really well, they know that when it's quiet for me, I'm taking time out to really help my energy, but also for me to be very creative. And that's when I start to create ideas, programs, and things like that. And this podcast is a result of me actually taking some time out and to go from firefighting to that future building side of things. Then I would say to you all that if you have this time whereby you've been given that gift of the quiet time, then use it to zoom out rather than zoom in. And this is where you can start thinking long term. This is where you can be more innovating and preparing the team and yourself for the next wave of pressure or disruption. This is where people and organizations can come up with some great strategy, ideas, and innovation. And because you see, that's where it's all born. And it's not born in the chaos, but it actually happens in the calm. This is where you're going to actually have clearer and probably freer, if I can use that word, to be able to think and work through things. So number 2 would be for you to shift from that firefighting out there, making it happen, to now start thinking about the future building side of things. The third thing would be around to protect and elevate your personal energy. Listeners, don't just manage time, manage your energy as well. So there's 2 things you need to think about there. If you can schedule some energy boosting activities, things to get the movement happening, or creative thinking time, and time for you to have that white space, as I call it. It's that time where you've got nothing going on, but you can take time out to think and you're not being distracted. You're not a robot. You are a leader, and one that requires fuel. Now that fuel, whether it be physically, mentally, and emotionally, that's the things that you need to work on too. And we need to feed those different things. You see, your team doesn't need more hustle from you. They need your best energy. I remember where many years ago doing sales bids, and we were working on multi-million-dollar sales. And what would happen is that we would be doing these sales bids, and we were burning the candle at both ends of the day and the week, and many long hours. And so it was very tiring. But, once it was submitted and so forth, we would actually take time out to re-energize, time out to sort of reflect on what we did and how we did. And then we started preparing our backyard, if I can put it that way, for the future. And what we noticed is that if we didn't take our time out for ourselves to re-energize ourselves, we would then struggle the next piece of pressure that was going to come through. I also liken it to, you think about a racehorse, a horse that races and is out there competing with other horses. Now, what actually happens is they start to slowly build up the training and preparing the horses for various races over several weeks. Then, once that's all done, the horse will go out to the paddock for for a month or 2 or 3 to re-energize and to recuperate and so forth. We too have to do the same. So I think something for us to all think about is protect and elevate your personal energy. And so even on a daily basis, if you can do this, even on a weekly basis, take some things or do some things to actually start to help you do that. Number 4 is create new pressure. Now, do this intentionally. And so being stable or quiet doesn't mean comfort. This is the time where you could probably start to raise the bar, maybe set some new standards, maybe create some healthy tension, because it's a very good thing for you to do, because when performance levels out, it's time to redefine what great looks like for you and for your team. So I think it's a great thing for you to do is to start to create a new pressure, because once you start to create the new pressure, that energy starts to come back, that momentum starts to come back. And when it starts to come back, you start to slowly build it up, and away you go again. Good example is thinking about an airplane. Now, let's think about the Dreamliners, the 787 Dreamliners. A plane is not built to be sitting on the ground. Those planes have been built to be up in the air, 36,000 feet plus. And it's just a beautiful thing to see it taxiing in the airport on the runway and then taking off or landing. Now, those planes are expected to be flying all the time, but sometimes they're going to come back down to have fuel go in so they can fly again more. The thing here would be, it's very similar for us. It's about us actually creating that momentum to start getting underway. We know where we're going, and underway we go, and we take off, right? That's a beautiful thing. So if you can create some new pressure intentionally and start getting things underway, it's a really, really good thing for you guys to think about as leaders, but also for your teams. Number 5 is I talk about this topic often in the different episodes. And it's two areas really. One is to celebrate, and the other one is to reset the goals. Because you see, sometimes leaders forget to celebrate wins. Why? As I say in other episodes, they just move on. Why? Because we're busy and we've got things to get on with. But if we take time to reflect, recognize, and then reset, that's a good thing. But I think the thing is that you use that momentum to re-energize yourself and those around you. But actually celebrating and resetting goals is ideal for you to do. So in the lull times or the quiet times, take time out to reflect, take time out to celebrate, take time out to acknowledge people or contributions or achievements. But it's also a great time for you to reset goals as well. And that sort of ties in nicely with creating the new pressure. So make sure you are setting your goals. If you've already got goals, then maybe revisit them and just review them to see whether they are the right goals still, and maybe there's something else for you to think about. Energy isn't just about caffeine or the hustle, as I call it. It's about purpose. It's about rhythm. And it's also about perspective. I love that word rhythm. It's about you getting into the flow is another good way of actually saying it, right? And it's a good way of calling it is the rhythm, the flow, the beat, and away you go. So if you're actually in a plateau right now, that quiet period, don't coast. Use it. Even taking time out to recharge and reflect and all that, that's not you coasting. That's actually you using it, the time, to recalibrate, refocus, and then reignite your drive. That's what great leaders do. Not just in a crisis, but also in the calm. Hey listeners, if today's episode resonated with you, I'd love you to share it with a leader who might need a boost right now. And if you've been through a plateau recently, I'd love to hear how you've handled it. You can message me on LinkedIn, or even maybe tag me in your story on LinkedIn. Well, stay energized, stay deliberate, and keep leading change. Your call to action is to, if you need help, feel free to reach out to me and book a 30-minute strategy call. And you can go to my website, leadingchangepartners.com, to book a call and just click on that button. And then there'll be a link to my booking system, and we'll be able to do that and catch up. Hey listeners, that's it for this episode. It's always a pleasure being with you. Thanks for joining me on the Leadership is Changing podcast. Until next time, bye for now.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Leadership is Changing with your host, Denis Gianoutsos. Each week, we and our guests provide information and insights through exploring leading change, inspiring executives and leaders to adapt and lead a bigger game in a fast-moving world.